2 years ago when I gave my life, and I've been at Breakthrough for 2 years, and it's been the two most painful years of my life, yet at the same time the most freeing. I was born in Indonesia, and I had quite humble beginnings. Where my mum and I used to live, there was no running water, there was no electricity, the dirt floor. We went out the back and ate coconuts all the time. So we lived in a village, and we lived quite a simple life, but my family were very rich in spirit, rich of heart, rich of faith, rich in strength. And I guess, that built in me so much that I didn't even realise until I came to God 2 years ago. And when I first came to God, I started to recognise all the goodness that was, part of my walk, and all the goodness that I read in the Word, and all the goodness from the people that I walked with. And I remembered, a lot of things that my grandma used to say to me from when I was very little. And her dying wish was that my mum would take me to Sunday school every week. And so when she passed away and we moved to Australia, my mum did. Every week we'd go to Sunday school, and I've never denied that God existed. Something in me can't deny that He exists, and I've always believed in His goodness. But I think for me, what made the difference was changing my thinking from seeing God as being up there to knowing that He lives in here. And when I realised that, and I was open to Him working on my heart, it honestly has been the 2 most painful years, because when you deal with your heart, it's like nothing else. You can deal with anything external, and any problems that arise always come back. But when you deal with your heart, and when you let God deal with your heart, He does it, and it's eternal. A few months before I gave my life, I ended a 9-year relationship. We were engaged. We just bought an apartment together. Life was set for me. We both had steady jobs. I was managing 2 boutiques in the city. My ex-fiance was an apprentice mechanic, and our plan was he'd earn a lot of money in a couple of years, and we would save to travel, we'd get married, we'd have kids, we'd grow old together, we'd die together, just like The Notebook, And, still holding it. And I guess for me, life was good, and what Dad spoke about is so true last week. The worst enemy to a great life is a good life. I had a good life. I've got an amazing mom, I've got a great family, he was a beautiful guy, but I just knew it wasn't meant to be. And at the time it felt like it was the enemy talking to me, but now I know it was God. I know that, I know that it just wasn't meant to be, and I didn't understand why. But now looking back, in the last 2 years, I'm a completely different person. I've grown so much, and I've got so far to go, but I've grown so much, and I definitely don't regret anything. And I think where it brought me to was the bottom of my pit. I couldn't fall any deeper, and I think my mum was going through a bit of a crisis at that time, and she kind of questioned how she brought me up, because I was throwing away the one thing that was solid and real in my life. And my sister didn't talk to me for almost a year, so I was at the lowest part of my life that I could have been, and I turned around and I felt like I had nobody there, and the only person I could turn to was God. And I guess my whole life I've been around the church and involved in and out of the church, but I've never known Him like I've known Him in my darkest pits. And when I surrendered my life at that point, there was nowhere I could go but up. I always cry. There was nowhere I could go but up. And in the last 2 years, I've really seen myself grow in confidence, grow in love, grow in grace. He showed me what it means to be humble, to walk in wisdom, and to just have a thankful heart, to be thankful for... Just to be thankful for everything that I've had. And, you know, when God started working on the process in my heart and dealing with the ugly things inside and, you know, making me more beautiful from the inside, it's just such an amazing journey. And, you know, he even took me to a point where he showed me about my past, and there were a lot of things in my past that I was never told, that I'd never heard, you know, and he showed me how situations happen. I actually received visions of how situations happened. And I think for me, the hardest thing was knowing that all along he's been there, but yet at the same time, it's the most beautiful thing. And, you know, I know that he was standing there holding my hand throughout the hardest times. You know, as a child, I saw a lot of things that I'd never want anyone to see. And I experienced a lot of things that I thought I'd be able to share. And I experienced a lot of things that you just, especially for your children, you wouldn't want your children to go through. My innocence was taken from me at quite a young age, and it's such reverse thinking to how the world thinks. You know, when someone does you wrong, you're justified and you've got rights to hold your heart against them. But you know, God really spoke heavily to me and told me to, number one, forgive the people that I hated. To number one, forgive my dad for leaving. To number one, to forgive the abuse. You know, to number one, forgive the poverty and whatever else. You know. And through all of that, I found his beauty and I found his grace and his strength. And I think most of all what's been... I'm not even using my notes. I think most of all for me in my walk and in this last 2 years, what's most important, if I can say anything that will encourage anyone, is to really build your own intimate relationship with God. Because at the end of the day, when things go wrong, your husband does whatever, I don't know what any husband, but your friends treat you wrong, you know, your sister doesn't talk to you, everyone's going through their own things in life, the only person you have to turn to is God. And if that relationship isn't solid, then that's what's going to tear you up the most, is because then really you have no one. So for me, especially going through things within the church the last couple of years, you know, with family, just with everything else in life, what's held me steady is knowing that I have a relationship with God and that I have a place in eternity. You know, he holds my right hand in everything that I do. I guess for me right now, like where I'm at in my walk, he's really helping me to heal. I have a lot of healing to do, as you can tell, and I think as well, just in this season, just he's enriching my values. You know, I've come back to a place where I'm really appreciating family. I'm appreciating my relationships. You know, I'm learning to forgive to a whole new level. I'm learning to not think of myself above anyone. And at the moment, I'm living with Bridget and Richard, and you know, it's been such an amazing time for me because they're the two most real people I know. You know, they don't hide anything. They don't hide their conflict. They don't hide the yelling. They don't hide anger. And in saying that, you know, I guess, you know, I'm just so thankful for all the relationships here that I have, and especially being able to live in a household where people are hungry for God and they bring up their children hungry for God. And you know, I'm really learning how to run a household and how to be a wife and what it's like to be a husband. And, you know, I think... You have to say I was single. I think, yeah, it's just such a great time for me. You know, I know 2012 is going to bring to manifest a lot of things that I have been believing in. And how that's going to come to pass, I don't know, to be honest, but I know that it's an exciting year, and yeah, I'm really excited for what this year brings, and even just within the house. And I guess for my future, there's always been something in me that's wanted to change the world, and I don't know if anyone else has that, but something in me from when I was very little has always said, you need to change the world, you have to change the world. Like, it's just never been an option. But in saying that, I struggle so much with self-doubt that I don't understand, how it's going to happen or what God's going to do. But when I came to God, He made me see that when I mastered changing myself, then that in turn would change everything around me and change the world. And in the 2 years, I've changed myself a lot. You can ask my mum. We used to scream and yell at each other, and she probably wouldn't appreciate me saying that. We were, obviously quite fleshly. We see things in the natural, and because of a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, you don't appreciate your relationships. And 2 things that God has really imprinted on my heart in my walk. Number 1 is to think about what you're thinking about, to understand that we only change when we change our thinking, to understand that, and that's the hardest thing in life. I truly believe that's the hardest thing in life, because you're brought up and you're conditioned in a certain way. You've got pain that makes you a certain person. You meet different people that will tell you different things, and changing your thinking is honestly the hardest thing to do. And when I realised that, Romans 12:2, that, don't conform to the ways of the world, but let God change you by renewing your thinking. And it's so true. Like, anything that's changed my life has changed because I've changed my thinking first. And that includes my relationships, that includes success, that includes the amount of money I attract into my life, that includes my husband and 10 kids in, a few years, that includes everything. It's all to do with thinking. And I guess the second thing that He imprinted on my heart was the importance of relationships. No matter what anyone's done to you, no matter what people say, at the end of the day, for me, the hardest thing has been to realise and understand that He sees you exactly the same way that He sees them. No matter how much wrong they've done you, no matter how much it looks like they're a terrible person, He values them as much as He values you. And that goes for every single person we meet. And for me, that's been the most humbling thing, because I've had to deal with a lot of different people, whether it's in my work or whatever in life. And I guess coming from a third world country and coming to Australia and, all these things, it really just makes you face these things in other people. And I guess, He's really imprinted that on me, to just value relationships. And, we were created for relationship, number 1 with Him and then with people. And if we can't get that right, then what are we doing? Like, He really imprinted that on me. And so for me, I guess, in my heart, I feel like the best way that I bless Him and honour Him is by treating other people the way I want to be treated, and bringing out the best in other people and seeing the best in other people, because often you're the only person that will see something in someone else. And I know there's been times where it's just taken one person to believe in me to change everything in my life. And lastly, before I go, I just want to really encourage anyone new in the house, anyone who's trying it out, anyone who's testing it, to just stay plugged in, because that's all I did. I never thought I would be a spiritual person. I never thought that I would consider myself godly. I never thought that I would be in praise and worship. I actually can't really sing, so, it's all God. Like, I never thought that these things would happen. But I guess because I stayed plugged in, I was around in the environment, and God just grew me and grew me. And our house is coming to such a good place. In this last week alone, like, we have all grown so much due to the ministry, and we've got great leadership and great eldership. And I really just felt to say, you're not going to find this in the world out there. We are so encouraged here, we're uplifted, and we're growing, and we're making changes in the world, and you're not going to find that out there, no matter how hard you work.